On a day that started like any other, February 26, 2024, a cloud of uncertainty and fear descended upon the quiet town of Kissimmee, Florida. The tranquility of the morning was shattered by the news that 13-year-old Madeline Soto had vanished.
Was reported missing the next day, but investigators believe she was already dead.
Madeline, affectionately known as Maddie to her friends and family, was a bright and vivacious young girl. The day started like any other. Parents were getting their children ready for school, and among them was Stephen Stearns, the boyfriend of Madeline's mother. Stearns claimed to have dropped Madeline off at school that morning. As the day progressed, the usual hustle and bustle of the school filled the air. Children's laughter echoed through the hallways. Teachers were engrossed in their lessons, and everything seemed normal. But when the final bell rang, signaling the end of the school day, Madeline was nowhere to be found. Her mother, who had arrived at the school to pick her up, was met with the chilling reality that her daughter had not been at school that day. The school administration confirmed that Madeline had never arrived. It was a mother's worst nightmare coming to life. The alarm was raised, and the quiet town of Kissimmee was suddenly thrust into a state of fear and uncertainty. The news of Madeline's disappearance spread like wildfire, turning the ordinary town into the epicenter of a mystery that would grip the nation. As the sun set on what had started as an ordinary day, the search for Madeline began. Her disappearance sent shockwaves through the community, turning the ordinary into the extraordinary, the mundane into the mysterious. As the news of Madeline's disappearance spread, the local law enforcement swung into action. The Orange County Sheriff's Office was called in to assist with the investigation. The officers worked around the clock, tirelessly, piecing together the puzzle of Madeline's disappearance.
That's why we've got a lot of focus on this story, on this case, taking a look at each and every piece of evidence connected to this girl.
Every lead was followed, every tip was investigated, and every stone was turned. At the center of this investigation was Stephen Stearns, the boyfriend of Madeline's mother and the last person to see Madeline.
They also say she was in the car of a man named Stephen Stearns, her mother Jen Soto's boyfriend.
Stearns quickly became the prime suspect in the case. In the course of the investigation, detectives made a chilling discovery. Stearns' phone, which he had initially consented to having searched, contained disturbing images and videos. These images were not just criminal, they were sexual in nature. This discovery sent a chill down the spine of every officer involved in the case. It painted a horrifying picture of what Madeline may have faced before her disappearance. Stearns, who had claimed to have accidentally factory reset his phone on the day Madeline vanished, was arrested on charges of sexual battery and possession of child sexual abuse material. The forensic examination of the phone revealed attempts to delete evidence, further implicating Stearns in the case.
Now, Stephen Stearns is the suspect, and the day that his so-called stepdaughter disappeared, he had a really strange day.
Despite the mounting evidence against Stearns, the whereabouts of Madeline remained unknown. The community held its breath, hoping against hope for her safe return. But as the days turned into weeks, hope began to fade, replaced by a growing sense of dread and despair. The search for Madeline continued, but with each passing day, the reality of her disappearance became more and more grim. On March 1st, just a few days after Madeline's disappearance, the town of Kissimmee, Florida, woke up to a day that would forever be etched in their memory. The morning sun, which usually brought hope and warmth, seemed to cast long, ominous shadows. The air was heavy with anticipation and dread. The search for Madeline had been going on relentlessly. Day and night, the local law enforcement, along with volunteers, had been combing through every nook and cranny of the town and its surrounding areas. The hope of finding Madeline alive was slowly fading, but no one was ready to give up. Then, in the late afternoon, a call came in. A body had been found in a wooded area off of Hickory Tree Road, southeast of Orlando.
onto Hickory Road, where Madeline Soto's body was found. Not to be confused with Old Hickory Road. That's where police and investigators say they did catch Stephen Stearns in that 2010 Lincoln MKZ changing a tire the morning of February 26 when Maddie Soto went missing.
So on the same day that his stepdaughter goes missing and gets a flat tire, missing child, same day, does that make any sense to you?
The news spread like a shockwave through the town. Hearts pounded and breaths hitched as everyone awaited the confirmation they all feared. As the law enforcement hurried to the scene, the town held its breath. The wooded area, usually a place of tranquility and beauty, had turned into a crime scene. Yellow tapes were put up, and officers in forensic suits started their grim task. When the confirmation came, it was like a punch to the gut. The lifeless body found was indeed Madeline's. The news of her death sent a wave of grief through the community. The missing person case that had gripped the nation had turned into a murder investigation. The town of Kissimmee was plunged into mourning. The vibrant and lively girl Madeline was no more. Her laughter would no longer echo in the hallways of her school. Her smile would no longer brighten her mother's day. The loss was immense and unbearable. The story of Madeline Soto, a tale that began with a mysterious disappearance, had met a tragic end. But the murder investigation was just beginning, and the community was determined to see it through. They wanted justice for Madeline, for the bright young girl whose life was cut short too soon. 2 days after Madeline's mysterious disappearance from her home, Stearns was taken into custody. The local law enforcement, the Kissimmee Police, and the Orange County Sheriff's Office had been working tirelessly, combing through every shred of evidence they could find. Stearns was immediately charged with sexual battery and possession of child sexual abuse material. But the investigation didn't stop there. As the police delved deeper into Stearns' digital footprint, they uncovered attempts to delete evidence, further implicating him in the crime. This led to a staggering 60 new charges being filed against Stearns, ranging from sexual battery on a child under 12 to possession of materials depicting sexual performance by a child. The alleged crimes were committed at Madeline's home, a place where she should have felt safe and protected. The date range of the alleged abuse started from June 19, 2019 to February 26, 2024. If one of the victims is Madeline Soto, she would have been just 8 years old when the alleged crimes began. These charges were filed by the state attorney's office for the 9th Judicial Circuit. Stearns has waived his arraignment that was scheduled for April 2nd, according to Osceola County court records. An arraignment is when a defendant appears before the court to acknowledge the charges against them and enter a plea of guilty or not guilty. Because he waived the formal arraignment process, Stearns will not appear in court. Instead, his attorney will submit a written plea on his behalf. His next court appearance is a pre-trial hearing scheduled for April 24th. The prosecution and defense will appear simultaneously before a judge to determine if they will proceed with a jury trial. It's also an opportunity for defense attorneys to submit various motions, like a motion to dismiss the charges. A jury trial date has already been set for May 13th in Osceola County. Stearns has not been charged with Soto's murder, but detectives said they found evidence of Stearns sexually abusing a child dating back to 2019, when she would have been 8 years old. If found guilty of the sexual battery charges, which are capital felonies, he faces life in prison or the death penalty. The Kissimmee police detectives are working diligently to ensure their case is airtight. They want to make sure justice is served, and it's served properly.